Good morning, my beautiful brothers and sisters. This is Mary Hernandez with Genesis Kingdom, part one. So today I picked the topic, three wise men. And I know that I told you that I had picked that title and I had put it away because I wanted to go more deep into the study and who they are, and the story behind what the three wise men were known of, And it brought me in. Oh man, I'm so sorry. Which are called the three Magi, the three magus, if I'm saying it right. If I'm saying it right. It says, but they have become known of the most commonly, right? Which is Belshazzar and Melchior and Gaspar or Casper. According to the Western Church, a tradition of Belshazzar, it says Belshazzar is often represented as the king of Arabia or Ethiopia. Melchior is the king of Persia, and Gaspar is as the king of India. And that is also backed up with Daniel 2:13-49. But with that being said, I wanted to know a little bit about each and one of them. So I Googled each of their name as well to back it up with Bible verses. And we all know the story that you know them from, the three wise men that went to go see when King Jesus was born. But you also know that the same three wise men were the ones that were in Daniel, that when Nebuchadnezzar had a vision, that he had asked his astrologers, the sorcerers, to come and interpret, and they couldn't. So he was going to send actually for them to get killed. But Daniel was the one that actually stepped in and said, hey, don't do that. I could translate this for you, So I wanted to do a little bit more and who they were, for myself also in my study that I do. And also just to let you know that there's more to the Bible than what we just read and who they really were, because I honestly did not connect it together until really last night as I was doing my study, that, we had the three wise men and then we had the three Magi's. Well, the three Magi's were known as the three wise men. It's the same people, but I thought they were separate because, they went to go see the King Jesus that they went to go see. So I was like, man, three wise men, they had to be, really godly people, And I'm going to say this. Nowhere in the Bible does it say when King Jesus was born. And I'm going to tell you something. Even my daughter, we argued. In Christmas, I argue with her because she said, Mom, nowhere in the Bible does it say that. Says, stop, Vanessa, that's evil, don't do that, and I'm still studying, doing the Bible, and she was absolutely right. Nowhere does it say that. I think, if I'm correct, what I did see in the Bible, in the Bible study, because I'm going to give it to you raw, straight up, I think the only thing that connected it to it was the nativity. That's the only thing that I really got the revelation last night, is where they kind of just assume a star and then they did the nativity thing, but nowhere in there does it ever say that. And it makes sense because, like I was telling you, if you read repeatedly the story how God was rejected, nobody, he wasn't, everybody kept going to the enemy for help, nobody was going to him, so if God had told you to celebrate Christmas Day because it is the King that was born, you wouldn't do it because that's of God. But because man said, and because we all bought into that dogma of the cupcake, and that's why we celebrate it, because I'm guilty. I did too. I was raised believing that, but I didn't know the Bible either. I'm telling you, I would even show up for church, and sometimes I couldn't even hear them. The church would be packed, or sometimes, I wasn't even paying attention. And that's the truth. I'm guilty. I honestly figured, well, I show up in church, I'm showing up, I God knows that I enter his house, and in my own common sense, I thought well, that's good enough. I showed up to God's church, not knowing that there was more to that than that. Yes, as I got, reborn again and I got baptized, in Victory Church, I started paying more attention because I knew that I had a high calling and I needed to learn the Bible. But before that, you just show up. It's almost like this saying they always said, people will show up to church just to go ahead and say, hey, man, I sinned all that week. Man, I am sorry. And then Monday comes and we're back at the same stuff that we were doing. We're guilty. I was guilty. You know what I'm saying? I honestly said, well, I work hard all week. Hey, but it's okay to go out and enjoy yourself, but not keep it. If you're in a relationship, you keep it holy, but you also have to have respect, morals, and values. And it starts with you. Always. Never settle for being 2, 3, and 4. Marriage values are very strong. Relationship with the Creator is very strong. Integrity in who you are says a lot about yourself. And studying this Bible has given me that revelation as far as me too, my healing, my restoration, my inner being and who I was and who I used to be. You get the enemy, that's all they could do is bring up your past. They're like the accusers. Your enemies, your haters are the ones that, she did that. That's all. It's the same thing that they repeat. They're just like Satan. They're just sitting there bringing up your past. I don't live there anymore. I'm sorry. I don't even know you, but I'm sorry that you still live there. I don't. That's why you ignore stuff like that. With that being said, this is the whole thing of what I'm saying. Going to the church, going that I was raised, the 3 wise men, you figured, hey, they went to go see King Jesus, and then you get that they're the 3 magicians, the magus, and that is in here. So the 3 wise men are the 3 Magi's, singular, magus. It is called the wise men in Christian tradition, the noble pilgrims. From the east who follow miraculous guiding star of Bethlehem, where they paid homage to the infant of Jesus, the King of Jesus, Matthew 2, 1 through 12. Christian theology tradition always stresses the Gentiles as well as the Jews to worship Jesus as an event to celebrate the Eastern Church. As Christmas in the West Infinity, in January 26, Eastern tradition sets a number of Magi at 12. But Western tradition sets up their number of 3, probably based in the 3 gifts of the gold. Frankincense, myrrh, Matthew 2:11 presents to the infant. And then I added. It says, the gospel according to Matthew relates how Jerusalem and the Magi's attracted the interest in King Herod in Judea by announcing Jesus' birth, where the child was first born in king and Jews for the observe of his star, the rising that come to pay them homage. Matthew 2:2. Having already learned the place of Jesus' birth from the priest and the scribes and Herod, extracted the Magi's and expected a day which the star that heralded the birth and appeared the confirmation of the biblical prophecy. Jesus requesting, as they had disclosed upon the return, to extract the location and continue in Bethlehem, where they worshiped Jesus and offered him gifts. They warned him with a dream to return to Herod. They left their own country and another road. Matthew 2:12. Ensuring the massacre of the young male and the children of Bethlehem by Herod attempted to kill. And we all know that the magicians, the astrologers, they worked for for Nebuchadnezzar. Everybody knew that Herod was just so full of himself. And even as that, he didn't want no other king. This had nothing to do that Jesus was going to be, that he was of God, because we were God's people were hated in all this journey. From the very beginning, always being killed, massacres, the Holocaust, you name it, it had done it. Herod was self-centered, that he even thought his sons were trying to take his throne. So anybody that came in the way for him to have his throne, it's true, he would try to remove out of it. God's people were born. They would tell you, go ahead and kill all that. And I did one in there that was very to the point, that even it said, and it's in the Bible, that they had told him, hey, you go ahead and kill all this. If it's any male, you kill the male. But if it's a woman, you keep him. And it tells you that even what do they call, help me, Holy Spirit, the ones that help you with that birth at home. I can't think what they're called. But he had ordered them to go ahead and kill them. And this is in the Bible. And I actually did one on it. And she said, no, sir. And when he came back, he yelled at them and said, what are you doing? Why didn't you do what I told you? And he said, because I'm afraid of God. I am not going to kill his children. These children are God's people. And if we sit there and we kill God's people, that's the wrath of God on us. They said that's something that we will not do. They knew that. So God ended up blessing those women, the midwives, and it's in the Bible, and God ended up blessing them because they did the right thing. And this is what this journey is. It's about doing the right thing. We had also heard through some prophets on TV when I was at the beginning of my journey, some Philistines, that they were also helping feed God's people on the way under, because they would deplete the poor. They wouldn't want to feed them nothing. And then they were called traitors. This is just to put a picture of the war that we were all in. Now let me continue with my story here. It says, adding subsequent traditions, right? Established the narrative. In early 3rd century was considered the kings probably interpret as fulfillment of the prophecy in Psalm 72:11. May all kings fall down before him. Among the 8th century, the names of 3 Magi's, and it calls Belshazzar, if I'm saying this right, Melchior, and Gaspar, if I'm saying it right, that they have become known for commonly as Belshazzar, Melchior, and Jasper, also as Casper, according to the Western Church tradition. Belshazzar is also represented as the king of Arabia, for sometimes in Ethiopia. Melchior, king of Persia. Gasper, and the king of India. Who is our biggest enemy? They don't like us. They set us up for the next kill. And yet you have kings that are enemies, that are from Arabia, Ethiopia, and Persia. The king of India. And they come out and bow down? Come on, they don't even want to acknowledge God's people. To them, they were waiting for the last 2 to be drowned. And you think they're going to take a moment of their time to come and do that? No, they came to a king because it wasn't a king from us. It was a king from them, who they serve. And I'll continue going. The 3 was often venerated as saints and motars. It says their supposed relics transform. It says, and almost catapult, modern, right? Possibly the late 5th centuries in Milan, in thence of Colin. The cathedral in the 12th century, devotion to Magi, especially vibrant in the Middle Ages, that there were some patrons of the saints and travelers, adding adoration to the Magi, the homage of the infant Jesus, early became the most popular things in Christian art. The first extant painted the subject of fresco, Priscilla, catacomb in Rome, dating back in 2nd century. The Middle Ages, adoration, Magi, is associated with 2 major events in Jesus' life. His baptism, during which the voice of God publicly declares that Jesus to be his son. The wedding of Cana revealed the divinity, changing the water to wine. And I'm glad that brought that up. And let me tell you what it means. What do you think he really meant when he said, I turned the water into wine? Because they went from a covet with the water baptismal to be blessed by the Most High God, but he mixed it. So it was wine. So it was no longer blessed the way it was. Another word, that's a donation. That's almost an indication, an enigma. Sorry, I apologize. because it's a metaphor, the way he speaks, because it was supposed to be a water coven, blessed by the maker. But he said, but I went ahead and I made it into a wine, because he mixed the water with wine with the blood coven, because we all know that they ended up marrying women from a pagan world. And that's what he went to go bless. And that's in there. The baptismal, during which is the voice of God publicly declared that Jesus is his son. The wedding at Cana, which revealed that his divinity by changing water into wine. And then I just actually wrote this. It says this. It says in Genesis 6:17, water has the power to purify and provide deliverance. That it came, it says, and it can also destroy evil and enemies in the stories of the flood that comes in Genesis 6:17. You know how it talks, the enemy comes as a flood. You know, it's a water. When you're going to purify yourself, you live in that sinful world, the enemy's going to come at you because it's fighting for your soul. He wants you in a blood covenant that is red. That's what they said. This is my wine. This is my blood, which is given up for you. We all know that God is not a blood covenant. She's a water baptismal covenant that washes you clean and purifies you. And then the protection of the Most High God is with you. And it's only the 10 commandments. To me, that's all she asked for. That is nothing. That is nothing for what she has done for each and one of us, including myself, that she saved this ratchet daughter that was filthy rags and washed me from that blood covenant and purified me with the water that now I can see. Now it brings me to the infinity of the 3 days of the commonly celebrated in the last of the 12 days of Christmas, right? 12, 12, 12. The Magi memorized the special pastures of the countries, often a toy baby Jesus hidden inside, having left a bowl in the water and some grass other than vegetation. And the Magi's camels was the night before that the children were awakened by small gifts of their shoes, honored the Magi's gift of the infant. It's been a minute, like maybe a couple weeks, that I did vegetation. That's actually in Genesis, where she says, I will give him fruit, I will give him vegetations, I will do that. I forgot the meaning of it. And let me continue on with this. Adding Melchior, legendary figure, as one Magi, who was the homage of the infant of Jesus. Although the names were not recorded biblical in the account names, the 3 Magi's was Melchior, Gaspar, and Bezara, appearing to be in Chronicles, right? Barbarian is the 8th century that they have become known most commonly. And if you look up barbarian, you will get what it means. Gratian, and you go on and on. Gaspar, according to the Western Church tradition, Melchior is often represented as the king of Persia, is usually said to have the gifts of gold and the Christ child that is frequently decept, the oldest of the 3 Magi's, but also to win the white beer that the 3 named Magi's were venerated as saints, the mentors, and celebrated the feast of infinity. Do you get it? The child that he was frequently deceptive as the oldest of the 3 Magi's, often long, wide beer. They named 3 of the Magi's and venerated the saints as a motar, and they celebrated the feast of infinity in the West. You get it? So it's almost like everything, they made them. It's almost like a Santa Claus story. So they just made that and said, hey, So adding Balthasar, legendary figure, to one of the Magi's put the homepage of the infant Jesus. Although their names were not recorded biblically in the account of the 3 Magi's, appeared in Chronicles known in Ephraim Barian. That is also the 8th century that became the most commonly. Balthasar, Melchior, and Gaspar. According to the Western Church tradition, Balthasar was often represented as the king of Arabia and sometimes Ethiopia. and frequently described as the Middle Eastern or black men in art. Usually said it's given the gift of myrrh to Christ's child. The third name, Magi, was venerated as saints and mortars that are art. And this is the Catholic Church made them into saints, you know. So in the Gospel according to Matthew, right? I'm going to go, and real quick, hold on. It goes really into, and each and one of them. Hold on real quick. It's amazing revelation. And I'm trying to click on there right now. Okay, there it is. Like I was just saying, as far as in each and one of them, you know, it talks about Belshazzar, the king of Arabia, and the Middle Eastern was a black man that he's usually said to be given gifts of myrrh to Christ the child. Now I'm going to go into that we know them as far as the story of King Jesus, right? In their eyes, that's what they call king. Of course not. Let me go ahead and go. I think I had this open. Oh, there you are. Okay. Let me read this to you. The Magi's are the three wise men who provide gifts for the virgin and the baby appeared in the Gospel Matthew 2. Altogether was a carol that we are the three kings oriented that remains popular and not clear. For the Magi's kings are the three that were known oriented, and it was very wise. Magi's were not kings. Magi is the plural for magus. They were magicians, astrologers, gospel, and the gospel never calls them kings. Association with Magi, the kings began around the 6th century. At this time, the star follows and became an image out of Greek letters, chi and rho, the sign of Constantine. What is the 6th century of theologians telling us? Look up what Constantine means. I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, it's just doing some research, you know, and it says in the 6th century, the theologians are telling us that one of them pays the homage of child Jesus. So they should pay homage and inferior to Byzantine, the imperial of the Roman empires, representing both the church and the states. Magi as servants. These are proof of the text that supports identification that Magi with kings were example of the prophet Isaiah chapter 60 that read, "The nations shall come to the light and the kings of brightness will draw." Verse 6 says that they shall bring gold, frankincense, in Psalm 72 to find prediction. The kings of Tarshish and the isles render to the tribute. The kings of Sheba and Seba will bring gifts. We all know, come on. But Matthew, does not want this Magi of kings. On the contrary, it says Matthew does a favor to earthly kings and King Herod. Matthew quite deliberately tacks the King Herod's name and represents Roman rule. His tyrant is involved with the slaughter of the innocent. They would have killed him. There's no way they would have let him live. They didn't do none of that. That was going to be somebody that was going to take their place. And you think that they were going to sit there and let him, serving that they serve a king of the kings, the Lord of the Lord in their eyes? Come on. They would have done it. They didn't give 2 cents with any of our ancestors because they knew our royal blood. Now it says the plate also represents Roman rule. He is the crown. Satan at Jesus' temptation that Jesus is all the earthly rule. Excuse me. If Satan had the power to bestow, Jesus himself states the rulers and Gentiles, the Lord over them. The great ones is tyrants over them. Indeed, Matthew Herod treats Herod treats the Magi servant, which is appropriate because Magi were often viewed as servants of royal courts. For what? For sorcerers, because they were serving the darkness. They weren't serving the light. Magi troublesome. When Magi tells him about the newborn child that he becomes, right? And he becomes frightened. You think he was frightened because a child of the Most High God was? No, because it was somebody that was going to take his place. Because you got to remember, we have been asleep from the beginning of Genesis all the way down to to what we have now. What do they call it? Go ahead and go here. I'm going to finish this one up, and then I want to start off in Daniel. The fulfillment to explain why the Messiah was born in Bethlehem. Messiah was Herod secretly called Magi, which in Bethlehem says, go and search diligently for the child. Now you have found him, bring him to me so that I may also pay homage. However, Herod had no desire anything of sword and interested in solely killing the potential revival. See, it was his rival. That was his rival. That was going to be somebody that was going to take his place. Not as the king of the Lord, because he wasn't of God. You know what I'm saying? He's seen it as somebody that was going to come through. That's my rival. You know what I'm saying? That is somebody that's going to come. He tried to sit there and take out his sons that he thought they were trying to take the throne from him. So what made him think that's his rival? He's all like, I don't want that. He's all, I want to take him out because I'm king. Because you got to remember, Mother allowed all this attacks to happen. They were on the throne. They were running stuff. They had dominion over there. Satan had dominion over it. So in their eyes, they went to bow down to somebody. The Arabians, they're not for us. Surely not Persia. You did the history. Those are the four that you do, the four horns, the four beasts. That they're not going to sit there and come and worship a king that's going to sit there and come. We were attacked in all this journey from our own and even as well as the evildoers, the real enemy in this world. They're not going to sit there and go and praise and worship the king, of the Lord. You know? And there's so much in here that it tells you. Magi antically occasionally carried the reputation engaging in an implication of actions acting into the government that went in such Roman historians, and it tells the Tyrus and the empire that banished old Magi from Rome in the year of 19 CE. Nevertheless, the Persians led, they spake with Magi, represented the birth of King Cyrus in Persia. Strangely enough, that the prophet Isaiah refers to King Cyrus as Persian, the Lord appointed in Malchus and Matthew. That is the story. You know, all this are people that in their eyes have made themselves king. All of them. All of them. They sit there and of course they're rival to each other. You hear it in David that even his son Absalom was trying to take David out because of the throne. What happened? Jacob betrayed his sister. You see it. Israel. It's repetitive. As much as God's people do it, so do the kings in this world. If it's somebody that's going to take their place, if it's somebody that they think is going to step on their toes, oh, believe me, they will do it. They're not going to sit there and try to spare anybody, you know. And I would copy paste some of this information just to give you a view and how it is associated with King Jesus' story, but also to let you know who these people really are and who we thought it was, but it wasn't, you know. And it tells you on there. Yeah, of course. I had another study right here, but of course, you know, anytime it says it doesn't let me do it. But I will bring up and I will do part 2. So let me go ahead and get my notes ready. And I will go over my little research that I have done. Actually, I got it. So I'll be able to do that. So just give me a second. I'll do part 2 video. And then we'll go from there. And then I'll read Daniel. That'll tell you who they really are. Well, you already know by now. Shalom, shalom.